Hi, guys. Uh, Allow me to give you a brief understanding of this whole concept of parenting. And when we talk about parenting, I personally believe it's one of the most um, committed and responsible tasks that has been bestowed upon the species of human beings. Because as parents, it is our role and our responsibility to make sure that we raise well balanced, emotionally well balanced, mentally well balanced, and physically well balanced individuals on this planet. And most of our behaviors, when you look at the human species, 60% of our behaviors are programmed in our cellular memories during the fetus stage in our when we are in our mother's womb, and the rest of our programming happens from 0 to 4 years of age. And more primarily, the 0 to 7 years of a child's life are the most critical years of a child's foundation, where every single thing that's spoken in the environment, every single action that's going on in the environment is being implanted as a memory or as a program in the child's subconscious, because the child's brain during that stage, the 0 to 7 years of age, is in the theta stage, which is the stage of programming of the subconscious. So it's very important we understand how to raise our children, and it's very important that we become the ideal examples of being that change or being that person we want our children to be. So, when you understand this whole thing about human beings being the most superior species on the planet, what makes us more superior than any other species is the brain, the evolved brain, or the new brain called the neocortex, or the intelligent brain. So, we as a species have been endowed upon the maximum level of intelligence or consciousness when we compare ourselves to any other species on the planet. And keeping this in mind, it's very important that everything about our behaviors, everything about our mechanisms is managed by our brain. And the human brain takes the first 21 years to develop, primarily the 0 to 14 years for at least some kind of development. And it's very, very important we understand, my dear friends, that one of the core survival needs of every species on the planet is not food and it's not shelter. That comes secondary. Primary survival need is nurturance, touch, a sense of belongingness, and love. And especially for the human species, the human beings, we are talking about the nurturance, the touch, the love, and the belongingness of both the biological mother and the father. And when these survival needs are not met, right, at the early age, at the early childhood age of being born, the brain somehow starts perceiving that it's not in a safe environment, and it goes into an auto-programmed threat mode or a fearful mode all the time. So it's very, very important to understand that the concept of marriage was made in the human species so that the mother and the father could stay around with each other and nurture the child and contribute to a well balanced upbringing. But since nobody explains this to us, we as parents have been auto programmed in our childhood with our behavior mechanisms, and we end up giving the same to our children as a legacy. And these patterns, I'm talking about our anger patterns, our fear patterns, our sadness patterns, and we don't even realize that the child is designed to learn through observation, and most of the time it is the child's environment that is creating the child's reality. So, if the child is in an environment where there's a lot of conflict between the mother and the father, the child goes into a threat mode and a reactive mode. And ever since the child is born or small, the reactive brain is being nurtured more than the conscious or the cognitive brain. So, that starts predominating us, and we become auto programmed robots. So, my dear parents, conscious parenting is an act where parents, both the mother and the father, are conscious moment to moment and not behaving like subconscious or auto programmed robots. My question to every parent is, or every human being is, are you a robot or are you a human being? You know what? We've lost that essence of consciousness somewhere, the essence to make choices, and we are all constantly reacting. Now, the thing we must remember here is from the age of 0 to 7 years, which are the prime programming years of a child, the child does not have a logical brain. So the child cannot process information logically. So if there's a conflict that's happening with the parents, if the parents are shouting at the child or screaming at the child or saying anything that's unacceptable to the child starts believing that I'm not good enough. And the child starts believing that there's something wrong with me. And the child starts perceiving that life is just threat where there's only conflict. And the child is only learning very innocently through observation. Observation creates the impact in the memory and in the subconscious, because the child cannot learn through logic. The logical brain only develops after the child is 7 years old. So 0 to 7, the child is only learning through observation. We are born with something called mirror neurons so that we could mirror our environment, and it is our environment that creates our behavior and not our genetics. So, my dear friends, it's very, very, very important for parents to be mindful, especially from the time of conception to the first 7 years. That is the foundation building years of a child. And if you want your child to be a certain way, you have to display that behavior and you have to be that change. Because the child is not going to learn through lectures, the child is going to learn through observing the mother and the father. And guess what? All of these behaviors are implanted in the first 0 to 14 years, and right after your child is about 16, 17 in adolescence, all of those behaviors start coming out, and then suddenly you see your child, behaving exactly like you behave, reacting exactly like you react. So it's very, very important that we understand this concept, and from the time of conception, you have to make sure you're keeping your child in a safe emotional environment. Yes, it's really important. Conscious parenting is about being conscious and making choices every moment, asking yourself, this is how I'm going to react right now, and what's the impact it's going to have on the child's psychology. Somehow, it's really sad, but it's true that we pick up most of the psychological wounds and emotional wounds from the people we love the most in our childhood. And for the rest of our life, we are projecting those behaviors on the outside world. And we believe that the outside world is giving us all of this. But the truth is, all of whatever we are attracting in our later years is nothing but programmed beliefs and programmed realities that we are projecting onto life, and it's reflecting back to us. So, my dear parents, it's very important before you even have a child, first understand what human psychology is, how it's impacted with your behavior. And it's really not your fault that you became who you became, because it was given to you by your parents, and it's not even your parents' fault because they got it from their parents. That's not the point. The point is, are you willing to be that generation of parents who breaks this cycle and starts giving something different to your children? A lot of parents I meet who have children above 12, 14, and they ask me this question, now the damage is done, what do we do? So before the age of 21, the child's brain has fully not developed. So it's in a very malleable state. It's not hardwired with behaviors. So it's very simple to manipulate the brain and to work on new neural pathways and new behavior mechanisms. And the first, it happens by you becoming the change, you reflecting to the child what you want the child to behave. As every species on the planet is more wired for kindness, for compassion, for touch, for love and belongingness. We were never wired for aggression, and even a simple scolding or a shouting for a small child from the parent is actually trauma. Yes, it leads to a lot of deep-rooted trauma and leads to a lot of deep-rooted psychological wounds that we are not aware of. Beating is an absolute no. There is no species on the planet who beats up their own child. It is only the human beings, that have lost it somewhere, and we took on to slapping our children, beating our children. And when I speak to parents, they say, "Bas ek thappad to mara tha." It's an absolute no. Understand, my dear friends, every human being is born with this essence of God. We all carry this true core self of divinity within us. But in that first 14 years of our life, based on how our environment treated us, we lose that God essence and we start believing that we are dog. So you've lost the God and you've become that dog like character who's reacting all the time, and who misses out on the essence of losing its cognitive brain or the conscious mind. My dear friends, it's very, very important for you to take on the role of conscious parents, understand it, and be kind, compassionate, and mindful parents, because your children are the future of our planet tomorrow. And as a collective, if each one of us become conscious, then we will save our future generations from something like these natural calamities of COVID virus, because what is coming back to us right now is all of the collective vibration that we have given out as a species. Once again, reaffirming the fact that kindness is the key, compassion is the key, patience is the key. And if you don't have it, please don't destroy your children's foundation by being unkind, rude, and being an auto program device to your accustomed behaviors. So it's very important that you first work on yourself, change yourself as a human being, and your child will just truly pick up your behaviors automatically, even without you training your child. Conscious parenting is more about having choices and being available to every choice that you can make. Conscious parenting is about being mindful. It's about learning to uh, train your child with more of patience, more of communication rather than aggressive behavior. You cannot scream and shout at a child and teach a child something positive. It's just not aligned with the purpose. So, once again, my dear friends, are you willing to step up to be conscious parents? Because the entire future of our planet depends on our children.